Welcome to Complete BS, the official podcast of couch coaches everywhere. Not just football. It's every sport that ruins your parlay, wrecks your fantasy week, and still brings you back for more. Buzzer beaters, blown leads, and brackets in flames. Yeah, we're all over it. Unfiltered takes, armchair analysis, and enough bold opinions to fill a playbook. Hosted by Brian Schmuck, sports junkie, the Saban of stats, and your official voice of, I could coach better than that. Let's go.
Welcome, Couch Coach Nation. As we say goodbye to 2025 and hello to 2026, we've got some bowl games to talk about today and the first playoff quarterfinal game tonight. Then there's 3 more tomorrow, New Year's Day. Michigan also made their head coaching hire since we were last here. They named Kyle Whittingham their head coach, so we've got lots to get into. First, I want to talk about Michigan and Whittingham. On the surface, this looks like a good hire. Kyle Whittingham's a coach without baggage or scandal. In a long Hall of Fame career, he was at Utah for 21 years, and Michigan needed that after their last 2 coaches both had scandal around them for various reasons. My big question, if I'm a Wolverine fan, is how long does this last? Kyle Whittingham's 66 years old and was given a 5-year deal. This is clearly a bridge coach. He's a very good coach, but it's still a bridge. Utah had a setup with a head coach in waiting with Morgan Scalley, so Whittingham's used to that idea. I could see in year 3 or 4 going into those years, Michigan naming a head coach in waiting, assuming that they're successful, and then each year they could add another year to Whittingham's deal and give him a few more years without having to extend another 5-year deal or beyond. The question is, how do you feel about the rumored coordinators coming in? They'd be the ones that would likely become that head coach in waiting. You've got Jason Beck, the Utah offensive coordinator, coming to Michigan in the same role, and Jay Hill, the BYU defensive coordinator, who spent a lot of time at Utah with Whittingham as the defensive coordinator. They would be the 2 prime coaches to take over, one of them in a head coach in waiting situation. I like Whittingham, but I don't like his age and the instability moving forward. We'll see how it plays out. AV, what are your thoughts on Michigan and Whittingham?
I think it's a good hire for a couple of reasons, and success on the field and future outlook may not be the reasons, but he's a high floor guy. He's going to come in and at least perform at some minimum levels. They're going to win enough games and make bowls. I think it's a good fit. He kind of has a toughness to his programs that I think Michigan embraces. He's established. Like you said, there's no scandal. He's going to bring some stability to the job in a time that needs a lot of stability. So for all those reasons, the fit and the timing, I think, is really good. Is he super exciting at 66 years old to be the guy that's going to start the dynasty at Michigan again? I doubt it, but for right now, I think it's a really good hire. It's the best they could do, I would almost say.
Let's look at some bowl games to start the day. We've got the ReliaQuest Bowl, Iowa and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a 4-point favorite. Diego Pavio will be looking to show the world that he should have won the Heisman, but he'll have to do it without his do-everything tight end Eli Stowers, who's opted out. Iowa, as a rule, plays well in bowl games, thanks in large part to a typically solid, strong defense. I don't know how they're going to score, and this is more of a gut feeling, but I'm going to go with Iowa in an upset.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Iowa in an upset, too. I just don't know how Pavi is going to play after kind of going on the tour and the season's being over, and he's a little salty about not winning the Heisman. So he could come out and try to make a point, and in that case, I think that Vandy wins. But I'm going to go the other route and say that Iowa comes in hungry, well-coached, well-disciplined, and Vandy's kind of the season's over and they're moving on.
The Sun Bowl, Arizona State versus Duke. The Sun Devils have most of their best players either injured or opted out, whereas the Blue Devils only have a few opt-outs. But Darian Mensah is not one of them. I'll take the ACC champs and Duke to win and get the cover.
Yeah, it's a small spread, I think 3 points. So I'll take Duke to win based on Arizona State kind of limping down the stretch, not having their quarterback, Duke having the best quarterback. I'll go with Duke in that one.
The Citrus Bowls, Michigan versus Texas. Texas has a bunch of opt-outs, including their top 3 running backs. That's going to put a lot of pressure on Arch Manning to carry the load. Michigan will do what they do, run the ball and play really good defense. I've got Michigan pulling the upset in front of their new coach who will be there watching.
That's interesting. I'm going to go with Texas in part because Michigan has been a hot mess the last month. I mean, that scandal, that cuts pretty deep. Who knows how they've been practicing? I'll just take the steadiness of Texas. Even with all the opt-outs, they have plenty of talent.
The Las Vegas Bowl, Nebraska versus Utah. Utah's a 14-point favorite. Utah's going to be without their bookend offensive tackles, both likely first-round picks. The Morgan Scalley era begins with a Utah win. They've just got way more talent top to bottom than Nebraska does.
Yeah, I think Utah has a lot more talent. I think they're the better team. Nebraska not having Raiola doesn't help. I'll go with Utah, and whatever points they're laying, I would probably take that too.
Our New Year's Eve quarterfinals in the Cotton Bowl, Miami versus Ohio State. Ohio State's the 9.5-point favorite. The key for Miami is to get Mark Fletcher running well behind that big, powerful offensive line. The tough part of that statement is they're going against the best front seven in the country. Ohio State's defense is number 1 in total defense and number 5 in rushing defense, letting up only 84.5 yards a game. The Canes have not lost a game where Fletcher's had over 85 yards. Miami turned in a great defensive effort in their opening round game versus an overrated Texas A&M team. They're going to need to watch that game film from Indiana to see how the Hoosiers were able to stifle the Ohio State offense. The Buckeyes need to find some consistency on offense early on. The first half of the Indiana game, they had 5 drives and only one of them was over 25 yards. Getting some kind of rhythm for Julian Sayin is going to be the key for Ohio State. Miami's got a unique culture. If you let them hang around, they just get tougher and tougher. But if you can get on them early, they'll fold and quit. AV, how do you see this game playing out?
It's a tough one, man. I could see it either way. I thought that Texas A&M would score some points on them and put them away at some point, and they couldn't. Texas A&M's got playmakers. So there's a world, like you said, Miami uglies it up and, hey, hang around, and they can win this at the end. I could see that happening. Fletcher didn't run great against Texas A&M, although he did come on in the fourth quarter with some big runs and got going, and that was the difference in the game is that fourth quarter with him running. I think it's going to be hard for them to do that against Ohio State, at least consistently. If they can force Julian Sayin into a couple of short field turnovers and they can put some points on the board, they'll stick around. I think it's going to be low scoring. Both defenses are really good. I think it's going to come down to turnovers, man, and Beck doesn't make many, and Sayin probably will have 1 or 2, but I'm going to go with the overall talent and the overall defense of Ohio State, keeping them out of the end zone, making them kick field goals. I think Ohio State makes enough plays in the end to win it. I don't think it's a blowout, although it could be if things went right early. Like you said, it could snowball on Miami and that they'll wave the white flag potentially. But I think it's going to be a slugfest, a really intense game where it's low scoring but still exciting. I'm going to go with Ohio State 20-13.
I see this being very much like the Michigan game for Ohio State. Very methodical and businesslike. I've got the Buckeyes advancing 24-10. On New Year's Day, we start with Oregon versus Texas Tech. The Ducks are a 2.5-point favorite. This is the game I'm looking forward to the most. Oregon's only loss was to Indiana. Texas Tech's only loss was on the road to a fully healthy Arizona State team when Texas Tech's starting quarterback was out for the game. With Baron Morton healthy, the Red Raiders are perfect on the year. In scoring defense, Tech is number 3, Oregon's number 10. In total defense, Tech is number 3, Oregon's number 7. On the offensive side of the ball, scoring offense, Tech is number 2, Oregon is number 9. Total offense, Texas Tech number 5, Oregon is 11. This is good versus good no matter who's got the ball. AV, how does this game turn out?
I'm looking forward to this one too. I think it's going to be an exciting game. This is one of those weird games for me. I'm just guessing how I think this will turn out, where I don't know that the players are going to be the difference in the game. I think Dan Lanning's intensity and culture and kind of never die attitude is going to be what pushes Oregon across the finish line. I've got Oregon winning, and it's hard for me to say that because I've been on the Texas Tech train all year, and I think that they're capable of winning the whole thing. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they won. But I do like Dan Lanning in these situations. I think he's going to come have his team ready to play. I'm going to go Oregon 30-24.
The key for me is turnover differential, and Texas Tech leads the country at plus 17. This will give them a short field 1 or 2 times in the game to be able to steal a possession, to have a short field and be able to score really quick. I'm a believer in Texas Tech now. I wasn't early in the year. I've got the Red Raiders moving on 31-27. In the Rose Bowl, Alabama versus Indiana. Indiana's a 7-point favorite. This game is pretty simple to me. Indiana and Ohio State were the 2 best best teams in the country all year long. And in the Big Ten championship game, the Hoosiers came out on top. They've got the Heisman winner. Alabama, on the other hand, I don't think that they should even be in the playoffs. Yeah, they beat Oklahoma, but when you look at how they played in November, how they played against Georgia in the SEC championship game, I wouldn't even have them in the playoffs. Indiana's top 10 in scoring offense, scoring defense, total defense. Alabama lost to a 5-7 Florida State team that was worse than the record indicated, and they sputtered down the stretch. Indiana's expected to have Omar Cooper back and give them a full complement of receiving threats. The injury to defensive end Stephen Daly is significant for their pass rush, losing his 19 tackles for loss. They're going to need to make some adjustments without him. Alabama's got all the history and the past titles, but none of that matters when the 2025 teams take the field. Indiana cruises 35-21 on to the next round. AV, am I way off?
No, I think this is setting up. Everything about it screams that Indiana's going to win this one and probably going away. I won't say they dominate the whole game, but Alabama, I think, has the talent edge if you just look at recruiting rankings. But it doesn't matter. Indiana's beaten teams more talented than them all year long, really for 2 years now. They're a machine on offense. They just got it humming. Defensively, they do enough. They're not afraid of the Alabama name. They beat Ohio State this year. They believe they can beat anyone in the country. There's nothing about it. Like you said, you mentioned Alabama sputtering down the stretch. They didn't look good for probably most of the season, even though they were winning games. There was a stretch in the middle of the season where they were beating ranked teams. But outside of those 3 games, it wasn't pretty for them. There was just kind of a struggle. I'll give them credit. They won enough to get in the playoffs. But nothing about this matchup says to me that Alabama should win. I'm going to go Indiana as well, and I think they may pour it on late. I'm going to say 40-28.
The final game for a spot in the college football playoff semifinals is the Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss versus Georgia. Georgia's a 6.5-point favorite. The regular season game was won at home by Georgia 43-35. Now we move to New Orleans in the Sugar Bowl, and there's no Lane Kiffin in this game. For Georgia, we keep saying we need to see more out of Gunnar Stockton. He's got 6 games this year where he's thrown for under 200 yards and only one 300-yard game on the season. Since they played Ole Miss on October 18th, he's gone over 230 yards just one time, yet they keep winning. At some point, his ineffectiveness is going to bite them. For Ole Miss, in their first meeting, they weren't able to get Kejuan Lacey going. He is probable for the game, but he's banged up. He had 12 carries for 31 yards in that game. Lacey's going to need to be around 85-plus yards with some additional yards on the ground from Trinidad Chambliss for Ole Miss to have a chance in this game. However, Georgia's number 4 in rushing defense nationally, and no team has rushed for over 125 yards as a team. The top individual performance was Star Thomas with 60 yards in an overtime game versus Tennessee. Kirby's done this a bunch as an assistant and a head coach. Pete Golding's in his second game as head coach. Georgia's gotten better and better as the season's progressed, and I see them moving on with a 34-17 win. AV, what do you got?
Yeah, this is one of those interesting scenarios where getting the first round G5 team, Tulane, did not help Ole Miss at all, because when you look at Indiana, they didn't know if they were going to play Oklahoma or Alabama. I guarantee you Kirby has been prepping for Ole Miss ever since the pairings came out. And so, that's 3 weeks of prep for Kirby versus Ole Miss. So throw that in on top of the fact that they beat Ole Miss pretty well in the first meeting. Lane Kiffin, the offensive mastermind, is not there calling plays. The defensive coordinator for Ole Miss is now the head coach, so how does he juggle that? Like you said, Kirby's been there, done that a million times. This team will be more than ready to play. They've gotten stronger and stronger as the year has gone by. I think Georgia cruises in this one, and it becomes one of the more boring games of the year. I say 39-21. I don't think it's very close.
Now we move on to AV's book club, and what do you got? Show me a moneymaker.
Well, I just hit on it. It's the Georgia game. They're only given 6.5. I think Georgia wears them out, especially late. I don't know that with all the prep that Ole Miss gets into the end zone very many times. I think Georgia runs it down their throat, controls the game, scores when they want to, and they cover the 6.5 easily.
I like that pick a lot. I definitely agree with it. I think Georgia covers the spread. My bonus pick is the Indiana-Alabama over at 47.5. The Alabama defense is nowhere near what the Ohio State defense is, so the Hoosiers are going to be able to score and score often. Bama will have a couple of drives and probably get maybe a late touchdown when the game's already in hand. I've got Indiana scoring 35 in this game. I could easily see them getting into the 40s, and at a total of 47.5, this cover looks easy to me. Indiana, Alabama, take the over 47.5.
Bama's receivers have the big play capability too, so they could pop a long ball and score quickly. I like the over on that.
Join us at couchcoachnation.com, and you can follow the Complete BS Pod on X and Instagram. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to Complete BS. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us online. And tell us what you think of this episode. Use hashtag CouchCoachNation, and let's keep the conversation going.